Today in our 2014 Honda CRV, which we're going to be connecting to a Damon Motor Coach Tuscany on a Freightliner chassis, we're going to show you how to install the SMI Air Force One supplemental braking system. This proportional braking system is designed for use with coaches with air brakes. Its part number is SM99243. Now to test out the Air Force One, we're going to use the nice coiled airline that comes with it. I like that it's coiled. It helps to keep it up off the ground. Here in our car, we'll pull off that protective cap. That's just helping to keep dirt and debris from filling up that hole. Slide our fitting on, come up to our coach where we've got the same style of cover. It's just a little larger since this is the female end, and we can plug into it just like that. Now we'll start by pressing the brakes down on the coach. You see our actuator move. You'll see how this is going to give us nice proportional braking to our actuators, so we're not over braking or under braking in any given situation. Now another important part of the Air Force One system is our breakaway setup. So we're going to clip one of the carabiners around that wire. Now the other one, this needs to be connected to either the frame of the vehicle or the receiver hitch. We don't want to connect it to our safety chains. You see, we can just get that up, connect it right there to the safety chain connection point. That's perfectly fine. When we pull that, we should see the red light indicate on our rear view mirror, and also when looking inside, we'll see our pedal is depressed. Now with the Air Force One kit, there are going to be a couple of items that need to get installed here on the front of the car. One of them is our male air fitting. It's going to allow us to plug in that coiled wire that sends the air to the vehicle. The other is going to be our breakaway switch. Now I've used two brackets here. These started off as just our standard long bracket. I've modified them down slightly. Here's the breakaway switch. It's just going to line up with that small hole that I've got there. See, that's going to put that pretty easy to get to at the front. Then I'm going to be putting this one here. Again, nice and easy to get to, located right up by our wiring, so everything's pretty centrally located there. Now you're only going to have about 9 inches in the gap that's in the front, so you will have to take these brackets down a little bit if you plan on doing them, but they are a really good solution. Now we're going to use the hardware provided with our kit. Place that down through, and we got a nylon locking nut that'll go on the bottom side there. Now the breakaway switch, we're also going to use the hardware provided with it. Slide that up through. Now this bolt's going to stick up a little further than I like, so I'm just going to trim it off once we get it tightened down. Now a hacksaw or a cutoff wheel will be ideal to trim off that bolt. All right, now we're ready to take the orange and black and also the blue wire from the breakaway switch, and we're going to get it routed right over this way up towards the battery. Now I'm going to zip tie these off. You can see right there behind the base plate, just so it'll keep it nice and secure and up and out of the way. Now also with the Air Force One, we need an airline to go from our fitting here up. Now's a good time to get that put in place. We're going to kind of bring it down from the top, just right along the side of the radiator here. Just like that. Now if you pull through a little bit of extra, we can actually use that to pull our breakaway wires up. Just wrap them with a little electrical tape. Now we'll have those up there where we want them. I'm going to check the end of that airline. You need to make sure it's nice and flush. If not, we're going to use a tubing cutter to cut that off. This is part number F9009. A nice flush cut there. So you plug that right into that fitting. Now you'll feel a little stop point, then give it a good firm push. You'll be able to push it in just a little bit further. Then you should be able to pull without it coming out. And that'll go right up there. All right, now we'll take care of finishing that up once we have the fascia and everything back on the car. It's just gonna have everything routed so we don't have to try to fight our fascia or try to get back in behind it, which will be pretty tough if you don't do this beforehand. Now we're on to getting our operating system put into place. This has a vacuum line, an air input, an air output, and a couple of wires for the attachment of our breakaway switch. We want this to be located up in the engine compartment here. Really, it looks like in this situation, the best area for us to mount is going to be kind of right back here. We're going to mount it up on that firewall, kind of like that. That'll keep it out of the way. You can still get to anything you need to as far as repair things, you know, any kind of maintenance stuff. So shouldn't really have any issues with it there. Now to hold it in place, I'm using a couple of wire loom clamps. These are 1/4 inch. They're going to fit right around the end of that pretty nicely. And then a couple of self-tappers up into there. Should hold it up into place pretty nicely and be plenty strong. That one started there. We can get our started on the other side here. All right, there you see, got that mounted nice and securely up out of the way. As we run our airline over, we're also going to be taking the blue side of our breakaway switch wire over and making a connection there as well. So I'm going to go ahead and get this extended and we'll run them both at the same time. Now to extend the wire, I'm going to use a short piece of 16 gauge wire here. We sell it on our website by the foot. It's 16-11. 5 feet should be more than enough. Then we're going to use butt connector DW05744. It's a heat shrink connector. It's going to do a really good job at keeping out any moisture, any dirt, any debris. Maybe we won't have to deal with any corrosion down the road. I'm going to splice that right onto the end of my wire for my breakaway switch. We're using the blue wire. That's crimped down, give it a good pull, make sure it's connected properly, and then a heat source is what you're going to need to get it shrank down. Just going to use a lighter. Kind of tape these together, get them looking nice, that way we don't have random color wires running here and there. You could also use wire loom. You'd probably need 3/8 for this. I'm not going to tape it all the way to the end because I don't know exactly how long I need it to be, but I'm going to tape it up pretty good ways here. I'm just going to run this back behind our battery, around the back side of the airbox there, and we'll have it come up back in that general area. We put a couple of zip ties on it there. All right, now that we've got it ran up here so we can work with it, let's trim off our green wire there. Also trim off our airline tubing. The airline tube, I'm going to leave a kind of a coil in it. You see it'll come down, make kind of a soft angle, and then I can zip tie it up back here. That's going to kind of help hold it kind of up on a softer angle. If we were to come straight up here and try to go in, we might have to have too big of a loop. Now for the wires coming out of our operating unit here, it doesn't matter which one's going to go to our green wire, so let's bring that over here. The other one's going to go to a ground on the body. So we'll get our ground taken care of first. Got a nice solid piece of steel right here, so we'll just be able to bring that right up, make our connection right there with it. We'll use the provided ring terminal, just snip that off. I'm going to strip this back and double it over, that way we get a good firm hold. Just twist it up and give it a bend there in the middle. Now we can slide that ring terminal on there and we won't have any issues. Bring our self-tapping screw. There we go. Be grounded out. Just a little bit of slack there, but not so much where we'll have to worry about it hanging down anywhere. Now we can get our other wire attached. I'm going to strip this back and double it over. We can use either one of the provided butt connectors, or we're going to be using part number DW05744. All right, now let's tape our green wire up there just to make it look nice. Now Now, like we said, let's get one little zip tie up here. All right, that'll look nice and neat. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and get our vacuum supply all set up here. We're gonna grab the length of hose that comes with our kit. We grab our 2 check valves. Now, you want to keep in mind the black side of these check valves need to face our engine. Then we've got our T. Now this is going to split right into the vacuum booster line. Vacuum booster's right there, runs up along here, and it's pretty convenient to get to, so we shouldn't have a whole lot of issues making our connections here. I'm going to start by, you can feel where this hard line ends coming out of our engine. So we need to cut up far enough so our hose can slide all the way up on that black side. So we'll probably do it right there in that bend, just like that. Let's get a nice cut right there. Slide that side of our line in. Now we can come to this straight area here. That's where we'll put in our T. Slid in there fully, just like that. Now we're going to take a short length of hose off of the provided hose. Now for this check valve, we want that black portion to be facing toward the operating unit. So we'll use just another short piece there. Push it on our operating unit and then just want a gentle bend. All right, now we're gonna work on getting the airline tubing to go into the cylinder itself. You can see there's a grommet right back here on the firewall that comes out by the gas pedal inside, which would be a nice spot. What we're gonna try to do is go in that top left-hand corner, because our wiring harness goes through the firewall, then it turns down and kind of to the right the way we're looking at it, so we shouldn't have any interference issues there to deal with. You'll want to check yours, make sure yours is the same. Once we've got it, I'm just going to use a flat blade screwdriver, go in the area that we want to go through, and just push that screwdriver through, then I can go inside and verify it's coming out where I want it to. All right, now that we've got our hole in our grommet made, we're going to tape the brown wire in your kit off to the airline tubing, and we'll use the airline tubing to pull that through. So we'll just feed that airline tubing through the hole we created with our screwdriver. Maybe kind of tough to get it to poke in, but it'll go. Now once that's come through to the inside, we'll just want to gently pull on it. Pull through a good amount of slack, and we'll just let it rest up here until we're ready for it. Now we're going to work on getting our cylinder mounted inside the vehicle here. We'll start by removing these 4 nuts and the backing plate here. Now this is going to be mounted somewhere on our brake pedal so it won't cause any interference during normal driving conditions, but we want it to be as low as possible. That's going to give it its maximum effect. Now when this brake pedal goes in about 2 inches, we want that to be even with our firewall. So we're going to have to start it at a little bit of an angle. Too much of an angle, it's going to angle down. So we want it to be somewhere around there. We want to mark a straight line back to our firewall there. Figure out where we're going to be mounting our anchor. I think it's going to be about right there. I'm going to use a little screwdriver to poke through this insulation. Get back to that firewall and make a little X. Now we'll use our razor knife and trim that area out. We want to check the cable length here. You can see now it's going to be way too long. So pull that out. Looks like we'll need to be mounted right there around where my fingers are. Use a 4mm Allen key and we'll loosen up that little set screw. Slide that in, and then let's just down so it makes contact. Check it again there. Now they provide a self-tapping screw for mounting that anchor. I'm going to use a 3/8 bit driver with an extension on it. You could also use a ratchet with an extension. You may have to pre-drill a hole if you plan on using your ratchet. Then I'm going to go just above that X and pre-drill my hole. And we'll bring our block up. We'll just snug that down to the firewall there. You want to make sure that you can't move it. Bring our actuator up. Slide that backing plate on, and then get our little nuts installed on there. Now we're going to adjust for a little bit of slack. We don't want too much, just want to be able to move it about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch each way. And then we'll grab our 3/8 socket and we can get those snug down. Now as you do, this plate is going to flex. That's what we're looking for. As that plate flexes around, it kind of bends around the pedal. That's what gives it its holding force. So don't be too worried about it if it does start bending. All right, looks like that's going to be nice and secure. Now our airline tubing is going to go right into the push fitting, located right there. We want to make sure we've got a nice flush cut. Slide that in like that, and then I'm going to pull out the slack in this tubing. Then we can get a zip tie up here on this harness just to kind of keep it up and out of the way. All right, now we're going to get our notification light put in. This is going to be a 3 LED light. You want it to be somewhere where it's easily visible from inside your coach. Typically, the back side of the mirror here is one of the better locations, so you can see it in that rear view camera. It's got a piece of double-sided foam tape on it here, double stick foam tape. You can mount that directly up to the back side of the mirror. If you want to be able to take it down, you can use the hook and loop that's provided. A little bit of rubbing alcohol to clean off the back side of that mirror. Now we'll put our light right on the back side of the mirror there. Get it pressed on firmly. And our wire needs to go down to our actuator. So we're going to extend those. But I like to tuck it right up in the headliner there. Typically you can get it tucked in just using your fingers. If not, a little screwdriver or a trim tool will do just fine. So get over to about there. Now in our hardware kit, we've got a few butt connectors. We want to grab 2 of the blue ones. Now onto each of these, we're going to crimp our butt connector. And we'll use our provided red and black wire to extend those. We're just going to strip these back and put them in the other side of the connector. If we come right up here to this edge, we can pull off this A-pillar cover. We just need it back far enough so we can get our wire ran over the top of it there. There's going to be a little pink bag in there. That's our air bag. So what we want to do is get our wiring on the back side of that. That's good on the back side. We'll just continue running it down along the back side there. We've got a small cover here on the end. Pop that out. You want to rotate it, and then you can slide it kind of right straight back out. Like that. Just going to straighten out the ends of the wire, and we'll go right through that crack in the corner. And that should allow us to see them from underneath there once we tuck them down in. Then we can put our panel back in place. also want to make sure we realign the tabs on the A-pillar post here and get that reconnected. I want to run my wire up over the parking brake mechanism here. That way we won't have to worry about any interference or anything like that. Underneath this panel there's a little piece of wire loom there. I'm going to zip tie it around that to keep it up and out of the way. I'll do the same thing with my brown wire there. Bring it over and zip tie it up to the same spot. Now our red wire, that gets connected to the black wire that's coming out of our reed switch. Now I don't need the full length here from my reed switch, so I'm going to trim some of that off. Strip back our outer layer. That's going to expose the black, the brown. We get those stripped back. Now typical wire cutters aren't going to be small enough here, so you just have to use your side cutters. Just want to make sure you don't do any damage to the actual wiring. If you just put a little pressure there and pull out, you'll pull off that light. It's almost like a rubber exterior to it. So we get that twisted up really well, fold it over on itself just like that so we can get a good connection. Now for this connection I'm going to use another heat shrink butt connector. This is part number DW05743. It's for this real fine wire. We'll do the same thing for our brown wire and for our blue wire. Now when I do my blue wire, I'm going to use butt connector part number DW05744. This is going to be a little bit bigger butt connector. It's going to help me to do the splice I need on the other side. And what I'm going to do is take about a 2-foot section of the brown wire we ran in from outside of the vehicle. I'm going to get it connected with my blue wire here. We'll use that larger butt connector. Get those crimped down properly. That's then going to allow me to use this as my ground wire. This black and blue connection we need to have over to a ground source. Now let's connect the blue wire that we added our brown wire. Snip our red wire and strip it back. That gets connected to the black wire. Give them all a good tug, make sure we've got a good connection there. Now we can get those shrank down. Now for our brown wire, this needs to go to a ground location. We've got a stud right up here. It's got a nut on it that should provide us with a good ground. So let's get that removed. I'm going to use a 12mm socket to do that. We're going to add on one of our yellow butt connectors. Now this one also has a larger wire diameter rating, so we'll double this up. We'll get a great ground out of it. Go right over and we'll replace the nut. Get it zip tied up and out of the way. Just remember, we need a little bit of play. That all looks fine there. Now on our extra length of cable here, it's not a bad idea just to trim off. You want to leave a little bit, but not so much that it's going to interfere with anything. All right, now let's get our final connection here with our airline made. Again, want to cut that off nice and flush. Bring it right underneath. Push it in and then a zip tie right there. Hold a nice gentle bend in it. Now you'll see I've taped up my brown wire here just so we don't have a bunch of different color wires running all over is the main reason. Get this tucked down right there with our other wiring kit. We'll bring it right up along that same path. Let's tape up our orange and black wire a little bit. I'm going to use a zip tie just to zip tie that off to that airline. Gives a good anchor point. We won't have to worry about it moving around any. Trim that off and we'll make our connection here. Now it's time to grab our fuse holder and our 10 amp fuse. We're going to set that fuse aside for now. That'll be the last thing we put in place there. And we'll get that cut at about the 4 o'clock position. Then we can strip back both ends of it. Now on our longer side, we're going to add part number DW05745. This is going to be a heat shrink butt connector, 10 to 12 gauge. And since we're on the outside of the vehicle here, it's just going to give us really good moisture protection. Now on the other side of that, we'll have our orange wire and also our brown wire that we'll be attaching. Get those two twisted together really well. Slide on our connector and crimp it down. Now we can get that shrink down. A little bit more tape here will again give us a cleaner look. At the end of that, we're going to add on a ring terminal. That crimp down. We're going to be connecting that right here to the positive side of the battery. Back off the nut that's on the end of our clamp. Place the ring terminal on and then replace that nut. Alright, nice and secure. We'll just flex that over so our wiring can run over this way. If you want to, you can cut it just a small slit in that cover for it to close all the way. Place in our provided fuse. Put the cap on. And then we'll tuck that right there underneath that wire. It'll hold it down out of the way, but it'll be easy to find if we ever have a failure. Now with that all done, that's going to take care of the car side. Let's move on to the RV and get it taken care of. All right, now on our Freightliner chassis, we're going to take the two T's, and then the output here, we're just going to thread in the standard 1/4 inch push to connect fitting. Then on each end of one, we're going to put on 3/8 inch push to connects. The other ones, we're going to have the 5/8 push to connects. What we want to do is just get those all threaded together so it'll be nice and secure. You can see that thread tape. We want to be sure that fully engages there. All right, we've got those prepped. Let's go find a spot to mount our air tank. Now this is our coach tank assembly. You can see we've got our tank here. This is going to keep the air in there, and then we've got our valve body here. That's going to send air pressure out right through this bottom valve back to our towed vehicle. Our metered air supply is going to go in the middle. We'll show you how to find that and how to tap into that. And then our supply line, it's going to go on this side. And again, we'll show you how to find that and how to get tapped into that. But we want to figure out where we're going to be mounting the tank itself. What we typically like to do is find an under storage area, kind of like the battery compartment here, and just mount it right there to that flat piece of steel. But on the Tuscany we're working on, that's where your air filter is, and that's where your exhaust is. So this side, we've just got a battery bank and kind of an open area, so this is where we're going to go with it. And we want to be sure that we keep the bleeder or the blow-off valve, we want to keep that facing down. And you kind of see that our valves and everything, they're going to be facing the wrong direction, so we'll have to bring our air lines up and then loop them back. But I'd rather keep it out of the heat and keep it over here in a larger, more open area. And what I'm going to do is mark 2 of the hole locations. Now in this application, we're going to use this hole location and then this hole location. We tried this one, but it's a little bit too low. It sits behind one of our batteries. It's just not easily accessible. So we're going to go here and here. Now with those marked, I'm going to use a small pilot bit. And I just want to get these drilled out. Here you'll see we've got one of our holes that have come out right here. And the other ones come out right there. Those are going to be in good locations. Let's go ahead and drill those out to 3/8 of an inch. All right, with those drilled out, we can go on the underside and use the 3/8 hardware, slide it through. Now with flat washers on our bolts, slide those through the holes we drilled. Now it's a good idea to have somebody hold the tank in place, and we'll go out and put on our hardware there. Now once we've got one started, it's okay to rest there while we get our others going. You'll see what we've done is we've got our 3/8 washers, which is great. But to kind of dissipate that energy out a little bit more, we've also added a 1/2 inch washer behind it. Then we've got our standard nylon lock nut there. And we'll need somebody to hold the backside with a 9/16 wrench while we tighten it down on this side. All right, that's nice and secure. We're ready to start running those airlines. Now to find our lines, we'll want to come just in front of the rear axle. See our brake boosters here. Those are going to run up into a valve body. The metered airline is going to come out of that valve body, and it makes a U into the one above it. You can see it right here. It comes out here, makes a U up and around back into that upper. Now there's going to be dirt and stuff like that on your lines. To make sure we get a good connection, I like to clean these off with some rubbing alcohol. Now we're going to take our tubing cutters here. We'll go in and we need to make a nice flush cut. Now there may be a little residual air in the system. To alleviate that, you can pump the brakes until it gets really quiet. You won't hear any more air escaping. There may still be just a touch in there, so don't let it scare you. With our line cut, we'll take our T, had the smaller of the push to connects in it. Push that in. Do that on both sides there. That's all there is to the installation of that one. Now we need to go up a little bit further to the upper valve. You'll see there's a little 45-degree fitting that comes out. That's going to be our supply air. That's where we're going to put our other T. Now we'll slide on our larger T. You can see this one we need to take a little bit out. We're going to take out about 1.5 inches or so. Now we need to grab what we had left of our 1/4 inch airline tubing. I'm going to take both ends of that and run it right up towards the T's that we just installed. We'll slide one end into the supply side. And again, you want to push it in very firmly, make sure it's firmly seated. The other one will go into the metered line. Just like that. Now our supply line, we're going to trim off to length. That'll go right in the end like we talked about. And our metered line, that's going to go in the elbow right in between. Now the other end, right up into that bottom. And now this will route right towards the rear of the vehicle where we're going to mount our female fitting. Again, plenty of zip ties here. Keep everything nice and secure. Now to mount the female fitting here at the back of the coach, you can use your self-tapping screws and mount them to the fiberglass as it comes around here. You can see after a while and after pushing on and off, might start to develop some cracks here. So what we like to do instead of going that route is to use one of our long brackets, part number 18136. So I can bring that out just like that wherever I want it. I'll probably put it right up next to the safety chain connection points here. I'm just going to drill out a couple of holes to match the bracket that's on our female fitting. So we've got that squared up where we want it. I'm going to use my drill bit to mark my holes. There and there. And we just get them drilled out. To drill those out, we'll just need to use a 3/16 inch bit. Now we can grab our provided hardware there. Slide that on. This comes with our long bracket. And on the back side, we'll thread on the serrated lock nuts. Now we'll bring our bracket right up where we want it. Bring the band clamp around it. Start tightening it up. A good flush cut, and then that'll slide right into the end of that 90-degree fitting on the back. All right, now we're ready to start the coach. Let the air pressure get up to normal operating pressure, and we'll spray all of our fittings down with a little soapy water to check for leaks. We'll also want to spray down the connectors from the factory there just to ensure that there's no leaking issues there with those. And we'll do the same thing up at our T's. Now we'll give them all a once over, make sure we don't have any leaks, and once we've confirmed that, we're ready to hook our coach up to the towed vehicle and we can test out the Air Force One. Now with everything working properly, that's going to complete our installation of the SMI Air Force One supplemental braking system. Its part number is SM99243. And our 2014 Honda CRV.
Click the link below to shop, learn more, or visit us at eTrailer.com.